Hello, I'm Dr. Chandler. Welcome to my course video lecture notes. Please print the notes that I've provided and take your own notes to get the most out of this lecture. You can use these notes to create your own 3x5 note card. This section of video notes on psych disorders will first summarize psychotic types of disorders. Psychotic disorders consist of schizophrenia and can be diagnosed by the loss of touch with external reality, impaired cognitive processes, and personality disintegration. Family and friends will grieve their loss. Although the individual does not die, the personality they once had is gone. Individuals with this disorder typically withdraw socially and experience an inability to function in normal family relationships, friendships, and work. In this diagram, we can see the confusion between delusional perceptions with internal voices and the confusion with external reality of the physical and social environment. Schizophrenic disorders literally mean split mind with fragmented thoughts and emotional disturbances, actually a break with external reality. Remember that schizophrenia means a split or break from reality, not split personality, which you now know is dissociative identity disorder, and not a kind of schizophrenia or psychotic disorder at all, as it is portrayed in films. Schizophrenia is a psychotic disorder involving fragmented and irrational thoughts, distorted perceptions, a disturbed sense of self, and a disturbed sense of one's own emotions and emotional responses. This is why those diagnosed with schizophrenia often exhibit inappropriate emotional responses for a given social situation and withdraw socially. Hallucinations are sensory perceptions absent of external stimulus or a gross distortion of perceptual input, such as believing that the radio announcer is threatening you. Delusions may include grandiose beliefs of one's own importance, such as that the individual is historically important on the world stage, such as the son of Jesus. Speech patterns are often irrational, disorganized, and bizarre, known as word salad. Often with schizophrenia disorders, there are delusions related to the body, such as that another individual is stealing the food from your stomach, or bizarre kinds of religious ideation. General symptoms include false beliefs and irrational thoughts without any connection to reality. Brain scans of those with schizophrenia disorders often indicate structural abnormalities, but it is not understood if these abnormalities, such as the enlarged ventricles in this brain scan, are a cause or an effect of schizophrenia. This disorder is more common in males with an onset in adolescence or young adulthood. Women who develop this disorder more commonly have an onset in adulthood, which explains the children born to mothers who later develop the disorder. Another kind of psychotic disorder is catatonic schizophrenia, where an individual appears frozen or paralyzed in one physical position with unusual stillness and extreme stuporous withdrawal, characterized by a motor disturbance called waxy flexibility, involving muscular rigidity, such as standing and holding an arm up in a seemingly uncomfortable position for hours. Catatonia may also be characterized by a hyperactive, uncontrollable, random motor disturbance, such as opening and closing doors. Paranoid schizophrenia is one of the most common of the schizophrenias, with unrealistic, systematized delusions of persecution, often accompanied with auditory hallucinations, such as hearing voices making threats, such as a commercial on the television screen telling the person, "I know who you are and I'm going to get you." The individual suffering paranoid schizophrenia appears fearful or he or she can have a flat and inappropriate affect in terms of facial expressions. As noted, they experience increased paranoia around technology. Their delusions of grandeur is that they are important enough to be persecuted, such as by government agencies. And they believe that others are plotting against them, and they have this heightened sense of self-importance, such as having a cure for cancer, for example. There are several additional types of schizophrenia than discussed here. All kinds of schizophrenia have a high heritability rate. Genetic factors account for around 80% of the risk factors for developing schizophrenia. The only disorder with a higher heritability rate is bipolar disorder, also known as manic depressive disorder. Remember that all of the schizophrenias are rare in terms of total experience of psychological disorders in a given population, because schizophrenia disorders represent less than 1% of the population, while those experiencing any disorder are about 25%, or 1 in 4 of the population. I usually hesitate to give numbers because they vacillate between textbooks and editions of the same textbook, but some numbers are presented here to indicate a ballpark of frequency. But please use numbers from your textbook for your online reading test questions. The neurodevelopmental hypothesis suggests that prenatal infection or malnutrition may increase vulnerability to a psychotic disorder. If the mother experiences malnutrition or gets flu or is exposed to flu during the period of the embryo, pregnancy complications are increased, and there's a higher chance of the baby's brain having some kind of disorder. Here is a quiz for you to complete. Number some space in your notes from 1 to 13 and quickly jot down a T or F as I read the statements. I'll share the scoring at the end of this video lecture. Number 1, love is just a 4-letter word. 2, people find me very charming. 3, about the only thing that ever makes me nervous is being cooped up. 4, people who never lie are suckers. 5, feeling guilty is a waste of time. 6, if I don't feel like doing something, I just don't do it. 7, I often do things just for the hell of it. 8, I've fallen in and out of love dozens of times. 9, most of my problems are due to the fact that people don't understand me. 10, as far as people go, I can take 'em or leave 'em. 11, one of my chief amusements is pulling people's strings. 12, I've never been able to understand how anyone could pursue a goal over a long time. 13, I keep finding myself in the same difficulties time after time. True or false? Now let's review personality disorders, also known as character disorders. Those with these disorders exhibit inflexible and enduring behavior patterns that impair social functioning. Having one of these disorders impairs social functioning because an individual with this kind of psychological disorder will suck all the air out of any room they're in. The diagram indicates how this individual is extremely and ruthlessly self-centered, believing that their wants and needs are everything, while anyone else in the world, in general, amounts to zero and is insignificant in their estimation. These individuals only will seek psychiatric help when they are court-ordered to do so, and usually will misrepresent their symptoms as neurotic, when in truth they cause suffering to all they come in contact with. Here's a diagram of a continuum showing the differences from the non-disordered responsible individual that is, for the most part, productive and conscientious, to the opposite, the extreme antisocial, who does not mature out of a self-centered, what do I get out of it kind of thinking, and causes frequent serious injuries to others. This injury can be through corporate crime, where an executive steals many workers' retirement, or it can be someone who gets into fights over and over again with damage that escalates to persons or property over time. Fortunately, most individuals with character disorders are located somewhere in the middle of this continuum. This still causes others no end of grief when that individual with this disorder comes to work late, leaves early, slacks off while there, but is generally a good buddy with the boss, so coworkers have to do more, while the boss does not even scrutinize the slacker. Individuals with these disorders are con artists. They have to be to get by while others do all the work, and they do so little, if anything. Someone with an antisocial personality, or ASP, like poisonous snake, exhibits a lack of conscience for wrongdoing even toward friends and family members. They are aggressive, ruthless, and they often show diminished frontal lobe functioning on brain scans in conjunction with emotional shallowness and exploitative interpersonal relations. When the frontal lobe is not diminished, these individuals are very dangerous, planning their activities and leaving very little evidence of their crimes. Antisocial personality disorder is a type of chronic mental condition in which a person's ways of thinking, perceiving situations, and relating to others is dysfunctional and destructive. People with antisocial personality disorder typically have no regard for right and wrong and often disregard the rights, wishes, and feelings of others. Those with antisocial personality disorder tend to antagonize, manipulate, or treat others either harshly or with callous indifference. Diagnostic criteria for this disorder state that this pattern must include at least 3 of the following specific signs and symptoms: lack of conforming to laws as evidenced by repeatedly committing crimes, repeated deceitfulness in relationships with others, such as telling lies, using false names, or conning others for profit or pleasure, failure to think or plan ahead, which is being impulsive. Those with a borderline personality disorder also have a tendency to irritability, anger, and aggressiveness, as shown by repeatedly assaulting others or getting into frequent physical fights, the disregard for their own personal safety or the safety of others, and persistent lack of taking responsibility, such as failing to establish a pattern of good work habits or keeping financial obligations. They also experience a lack of feeling guilt about wrongdoing. This is not diagnosed in children, those younger than 18, but the affected person must have shown symptoms of this diagnosis at least since 15 years of age. This disorder tends to occur in about 1% of women and 3% of men in the United States. Those with a borderline personality disorder often experience intense and unstable interpersonal relationships and moods with marked shifts in attitude over time. When they first meet a new person, they'll over-idealize the individual. However, in a short period of time, the new acquaintance disappoints them, and then they see no value whatsoever in the person. They're often hampered in achieving goals by their impulsive and unpredictable behavior that is potentially physically damaging, with inappropriate anger and a lack of control of their anger. They have difficulty being alone and experience chronic feelings of emptiness and boredom that they attempt to alleviate with drama and self-caused emergencies. With narcissistic personality, individuals experience a grandiose sense of self and feelings of entitlement with no sense of reciprocal responsibility or empathy. They seek constant attention and react to criticism as severe threats to their self-esteem. They alternate between over-idealization and devaluation of others, as do those with borderline personality disorder. Those with narcissistic disorder have unrealistic fantasies of achievement, and even when they experience success, they don't experience pleasure with their achievement, as they believe they are never valued as much as they should be, and they have ongoing, unrelenting, joyless drive toward their goals. Dependent personality disorder, DPD, is one of the most frequently diagnosed personality disorders. It occurs equally in men and women, usually becoming apparent in young adulthood or later, as important adult relationships form. Those with DPD tend to display needy, passive, and clinging behavior, and they have a fear of separation. Other common characteristics of this personality disorder include the inability to make decisions, even everyday decisions like what to wear, without the advice and reassurance of others. They avoid adult responsibilities by acting passive and helpless. They're dependent on a spouse or a friend to make decisions like where they should work or live. A person with DPD often will move right into another relationship when a previous one ends. They're oversensitive to criticism and they're pessimistic. They believe that they're unable to care for themselves, though there is no rational reason that they are unable to care for themselves. They may avoid disagreeing with others for fear of losing support or approval and have difficulty being alone. They have a tendency to fantasize, and this character disorder shows some similarity to a neurotic dependency disorder. However, this individual can do for themselves, but manipulate others to take care of their needs. A diagnosis of dependent personality disorder must be distinguished from borderline personality disorder, as the two share common symptoms. In borderline personality disorder, the person responds to fears of abandonment with feelings of rage and emptiness. However, with DPD, the person responds to the fear with submissiveness and seeks another relationship to maintain their dependency. If you have more than 4 truths in this quiz, you are either very young and have not yet matured out of egocentric thinking, or you are a risk taker with very low anxiety levels, and perhaps you should be in a high-risk career, such as a police officer or a Marine. Or you may be a successful politician because you exhibit some symptoms of a character disorder.